Hello guys and welcome to my Subtlety Rogue guide for the BFA pre-patch. My name is Squiggle and today I'm going to be talking to you guys about how you can maximize your damage and giving you guys a little bit of a feel about what this class is going to be looking like for next expansion. In this video I'm going to be going over the legendaries that you can run, the talents, the stats, and the opener and rotation. And at the end I'm going to briefly go over what we are going to do differently for an AoE or a Mythic Plus setup. So without further ado, here's my guide and enjoy. So first up, we're going to have a quick look at what the best in slot legendaries are going to be for the Subtlety Rogue. Now, as you guys can see here on the Hero Damage website, the current leading build is going to be the Rhyddar and the boots. Now, obviously, this is based on a sim and it doesn't take into account every single raid comp that there is in the world, and doesn't take into account how much burst that your raid team has. So if you don't have too much burst damage in your comp at the start of the fight, then the Rhyddar might actually be the legendary for you. It has pretty good stats, has extra damage at the first 10% of the boss, and as you can see, run with the boots, it is actually the highest simming option. Now on top of this, I just wanted to take note of the talents. This one is actually using Mark for Death over Deeper Stratagem, and this is a talent which I will get onto later. Now second up, we are going to see that the boots and the insignia are going to be very strong. Now a simple disclaimer about the boots as well, you do have to be at max range for these boots to have their full effect. However, I am going to say that Deeper Stratagem and the boots do actually feel pretty good, which of course allows you to get through your rotation a little bit faster. And last but not least, like I said, the insignia, this is actually performing very good for all of the rogue specs, and sub is no exception. So in our Shadow Blades windows, the insignia and the Rhyddar are actually doing insane amounts of burst. So if you are trying to push something like the first phase of Argus and you don't quite have the DPS for it, then sub rogue should be the ideal spec to force you to make the DPS check in good time. So if I did have to rank these legendaries, I would honestly say that the Rhyddar is better than the insignia, and then the insignia are better than the boots. This is simply because it is pretty hard to be at the max range of the boss the whole time unless you are doing a fight like Argus, and even then there are times when you want to be closer to the boss or a little bit further away. So just to deal with this inconvenience, I think that running both the Rhyddar and the ring are the best option. Next up, I just wanted to briefly go over what the sims are looking like with the old tier pieces. Now obviously if you do have large offset pieces that outweigh these tier pieces, then the tier 22 sim is not going to be simming as good for you. However, in my case, I actually have some old 945 pieces of the tier 22 set. So my sims are coming out a little bit higher with the tier 22 set indeed. Of course, this even speeds up your rotation a bit. It gives you like 5 seconds off your symbols of death on average. And I really like that personally. It's a fun playstyle and it allows you to play a little bit faster. Next up, we're going to be having a quick look at the talents. Now for the tier 1 row, we are actually going to find that Find Weakness is going to be our strongest simming ability. Next up, we're going to be looking at our talent tree. Now in the first tier talent, we have Weapon Master, Find Weakness, and Gloomblade. Right now, Find Weakness is actually doing very well in the sims. Honestly, this does take a little bit of micromanaging at times, as you do have to maximize this window across the whole fight. However, I will say that Gloomblade is slightly behind even when you are using the insignia. So for now, I recommend trying to master Find Weakness and really see what the damage looks like when you use this properly. Next up, we're going to have a look at Night Stalker, Subterfuge, and Shadow Focus. And honestly, with the current build, it is a lot more about keeping your Find Weakness up. It's a lot about just having really small incremental energy bursts. So you'll be finding when you play this properly, you can actually be in Shadow Dance a lot of the time and you're actually playing the spec quite quick, especially because we are going to be running a little bit more haste now than we used to be. Next up, we are going to be having a look at Vigor, Deeper Stratagem, and Mark for Death. Marked for Death is a teeny tiny bit ahead of Deepest Stratagem. However, there is actually one rogue who is using Deepest Stratagem and is doing quite well. Now, what I will say is that Marked for Death is a little bit awkward to put into an opening sequence simply because Shadow Blades is on the GCD. Now, this means that when you open up, you have to do a little bit of an awkward thing where you Shadow Blades, then you use your Mark for Death 5 combo points onto the boss with Nightblade, and then you have to, you know, waste energy after that when you use your Symbols of Death. So, in my opinion, I don't like Mark for Death as much, but it seems slightly higher than Deepest Stratagem at this point. Second last, we are going to look at this. This is going to be Enveloping Shadows as opposed to Dark Shadow that we've been running for the whole expansion of Legion. Now, Enveloping Shadows is going to actually give us 1 additional second in Shadow Dance, so it's going to allow us to squeeze in a 5th or a 6th GCD depending on how you are playing the spec. After this, Master of Shadows is going to be our single target go-to, Secret Technique is going to be our AoE go-to, and this is going to be our sustained AoE go-to, the Shuriken Tornado. So, like I said before, when you're in Shadow Dance, you're gaining a lot of energy with this build, and you're having a lot of fun and playing nice and quick. So next up, I'm just going to show you guys what the stat priority is for the Subtlety Rogue in my highest simming set. Now this is with the tier 21 4-piece and the tier 22 piece, and it is also going to be running the Mark for Death talent like I was talking about earlier. So with this setup, we are going to see that Agi is far outweighing the other stats. It is a lot over the crit, which is slightly over the verse, which is slightly over haste, which is slightly over mastery, as opposed to what we saw before with mastery and verse being quite high and haste being quite low. Now, on top of this, I wanted to add that this is actually with a decently high haste set. My current haste set, as opposed to other rogues, is about 314. I'm going this mostly for Assassination and Outlaw, but I wanted to say that it has some decent carryover for sub. There is a bit of a sweet point when it comes to the haste. I think that it is around 250 haste at the moment. But then after that, you want to start going purely for critical strike and mastery. Next up, I just wanted to take a quick moment to have a look at a very good sub log and what this guy has been doing for his gearing and for his rotation. Now this guy is called Joke, quite aptly named. His gear is an absolute joke. If you look at this man, he has 254 item level with 6 sockets, and he is still running the old 2-set tier 20. Like, this guy is just geared to the teeth. Nonetheless, fantastic player. He is using Deepest Stratagem, even though it seems slightly lower, as well as the feet and the ring. Now, his verse is probably simming the best for him, even though my crit is simming slightly higher for me. However, this just means that you can play around with your gear and find what works for you individually, as this guy has done. Next up, we are going to have a quick look at what our best in slot trinkets are going to be. Now, the reason I say this is quick is because it is obvious. The Golgoneths and the Seeping Scourgewing are completely destroying right now, as you can see in logs and sims alone. So the only thing that even comes close is a Spectre of Betrayal, but you guys really shouldn't be farming old content at this time. You guys shouldn't be trying to kill Mythic KJ at this time. If you are, like, kudos to you. That fight is nuts. But for now, I recommend just trying to kill Vari every single week. Even if you have to pester your guild to bring you back to Mythic Vari, it's probably going to be worth it if you want to get some good DPS for the next couple of weeks. So for our opener with Deepest Stratagem, we want to make sure that we're using our Shadow Blades before the pull timer, alongside our Potion of the Prolonged Power, and then we're going to try to get our Nightblade up as soon as possible before getting into a symbol combo. And then after this, we are going to use our Vanish after our first Shadow Dance window, just to make sure that we are getting another Shadow Strike in for free. So it's going to start off something like this. So the GCD at the start feels a little bit weird, but it's just something that you have to get used to. Then we're going to go with the Vanish into the second symbols window. Gonna get a 2-set proc, and then we're just gonna go like that. So after our opener, of course, we need to know what we are doing outside of the opener, namely outside of the Shadow Blades. Now, what I recommend to you guys is you keep at least 1 charge of Shadow Dance on cooldown for when your next Symbols of Death window comes up, and you make sure that your energy is below 50 and you have your Nightblade refreshed for when the next Symbols of Death comes up. This way you are maximizing the DPS out of your cooldowns at every moment, and of course you are refreshing your exposed weakness buff as much as possible throughout the fight. Next up, I'm going to be briefly going around how to deal with AoE situations. Now on my screen right now, I do have an example build of something that I would run for burst AoE or Mythic Plus scenarios. So it is no secret that the cape is still very good for sub-rogue, especially when you are coming out of stealth, and the Umbral Moonglaves is no different. However, I am going to say that if you do want to run a more steady paced AoE build, you know, the ads are living a little longer, you're maybe doing some weird strategy on a boss or whatever, I would recommend going something more like Shuriken Tornado, Enveloping Shadows, and then a Gorshalak's Legacy if you have it for your trinket, or some Fire Mines that you get from Kingaroth. Now, it's just 2 ways to do your AoE, and you can be experimental with these and have a little bit of fun with it while you can. Now, that just about wraps up my guide about the Subtlety Rogue in the pre-patch. Now, honestly, I am super hyped for this spec. I think it's going to be amazing in BFA, and I think I'm going to have a lot of fun with it in the near future. It has insane burst, and it's starting to bring back its class identity of just being this real powerhouse in the opener, which I think will have a lot of implications when it comes to progression rating. Thanks for watching, guys. If you have any questions, feel free to comment in the comment section down below, and if you like this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time.